Four divisions, four hosts, all battling it out for the Holy GrAHL of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Deana Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zack Power.
Well, hello again, and welcome to episode number 18 of Field Pass Hockey's AHL podcast, The Holy GrAHL. Here at The Holy GrAHL, we're all about the American Hockey League and their yearly race to their Holy GrAHL, the Calder Cup. And this week, finally, we are back to our original format, for better or for worse. Just kidding. We all know it's for the better. Come on. But before we get too far into this, we are going to go around the screen here and introduce ourselves to anyone who may be new or just haven't joined us in a while. So we're going to go back to the old standby and just go in alphabetical order. So Andrew.
Yeah, I'll get us kicked off here. I'm Andrew Rinaldi. I am the beat reporter for the Chicago Wolves and Grand Rapids Griffins here for the last 2 years now at Field Pass Hockey. And I just want to say officially for the first time, Matthew Stafford is a Super Bowl champion. Let's go. I had to do it.
That was the only redeeming part of the Super Bowl for me. I was so happy for Matthew Stafford, but that was about it. I'm not even going to get started on OBJ and the Browns. Anyway, I've said my piece.
I like the halftime show.
Yeah, that was good.
That's some pretty young vibes there. Like that's feels like forever ago.
It makes it you go into it thinking it's got some young vibes going in until you start thinking in your head like, oh, they're not doing a show for old people doing like the Who or Prince or the Rolling Stones. It's for my club. And then it hits you. You're like, oh no. Yeah.
When was the last time Snoop Dogg released? Oh no. Oh no.
No, I was talking to my friends. We had a Super Bowl party. And it was like, it wasn't the Super Bowl. It was like Nostalgia Fest or something like that. Because for us millennials, it really was. They had the Scrubs guys in there. They had Austin Powers theme commercials. They had, Snoop, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Mary J. Blige all on the halftime show. Like it was the millennials living their best life that on Sunday night. I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, it was our Super Bowl,
It was. It was.
Like the little tailgate party too, right? Like all the outside festivities too. Like that's it's cool, man.
Was cool.
It's hip.
Anyway, for some reason I was waiting for Zack to introduce himself, but D comes way before Z in the alphabet. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, hi everybody. I'm Deana Weinheimer. I am your Cleveland Monsters beat reporter in my third season at Field Pass Hockey, in my second as the AHL editor, and I still support Joe Burrow, even though they passed on a 4th and 1. But yeah, now I've said my piece. I had to get that out there.
I'm Zack Power, and I'm in my third season now with Field Pass Hockey, and I'm here to promote that the CFL is far superior than the NFL, sort of. And let's talk about some hockey, I guess.
The hot takes are supposed to come later in the episode.
Oh, sorry.
I need to tell you the guys sometime the story of how my husband got Scott Hartnell and Matt Calvert going at a Columbus Blue Jackets event about their CFL teams.
What?
That was interesting. Oh yeah, it was pretty good. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get right into it. We've spent close to 4.5 minutes on our intro, and we're down a couple guys. What in the world happened here? But yes, of course, Michael is still off in Beijing doing Olympic things, and then Jeremy is out this week. So you've got our lovely little, we'll call it the
more
power
time than the LA Rams in that fourth quarter, right? Is that official?
This play is under review.
Okay, very good. A couple flags.
That's all that there were in the first quarter. But whatever. Anyway, let's go ahead and move into the week in review. So we're staying out in the Western Conference. I don't know what it is about the Western Conference right now, but they have some players turning up some massive performances. So player of the week, Abbotsford Canucks defenseman Jack Rathbone has been selected as the American Hockey League's player of the week for the period ending on February 13th. Now, if you guys haven't heard the backstory about Jack Rathbone and his younger brother, I highly suggest you go look it up. It's a real sweet, heartwarming story. And so it's great to see such a kind and wonderful person being awarded on the ice too. So he actually notched 3 goals and 7 assists for a total of 10 points across 4 games that Abbotsford played last week, which more than doubled his offensive output for the entire season. Now, last Monday, he had a 5-point night with a goal and 4 assists in the Canucks' 8-5 win over the Roadrunners. Then came back with another assist on Wednesday, also against the Roadrunners, 5-0, and then tallied a goal and assist during a 5-goal first period for Abbotsford en route to an 8-2 victory over Manitoba on Friday. I had to double check that number. That was just wow. And then he topped off the week with a goal and an assist this past Saturday as they knocked off Manitoba 5-2. In those 4 games, they outscored their opponents 26-9, with Rathbone being on the ice for over half of those goals, for 14 goals and only 3 against. Well earned, well deserved.
Well, you're saying we talked about how fun the Abbotsford Canucks have been. I mean, for a number of different episodes, and this really kind of emphasizes the point here, and not just Abbotsford, but the Pacific Division as a whole. I know I've gone on before about the amount of teams with positive goal differentials, but they're, with that incredible run, I had to double take, and they're now a plus 14 sitting at 6th in the division. That's absurd. So, I looked at some of those numbers. I couldn't even believe it. I had to do a double take. I'm not going to lie, and make sure that, I was like, 8 goals against Manitoba. I don't know about that, but just kind of goes to show what I know about what a good hockey team looks like. Nah, I'm just kidding. They're more than just the best jerseys in the league. They're a fun team to watch, and I think our fans on the West Coast they're up for a treat all season.
Yeah, and I alluded to that series in the last episode. I said it would be something that Michael would have loved to see, if he was in North America physically, right? And boy, oh boy, he really did miss a doozy. But correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time that Abbotsford had a player of the week. I can't think of one so far this season. So it's good. And to be able to do it against Manitoba, I talked about it last week about getting that player of the week or getting this many points against a certain team. Last week it so happened to be San Diego, but this time it's against Manitoba, who's been a powerhouse in the Central Division, right? So that just means a little bit more when your team not only goes 8-2 against them, but you now have a star player.
For sure. I'm excited to see if he can kind of keep that production up and where Abbotsford goes from there, because that has to be a huge rallying point for the entire team. So, All right, well, we're going to move on. And unfortunately, guys, are we back to seeing a lot of COVID kind of rescheduling again? Laval was supposed to play a game against Belleville on Wednesday night. That would have been the 16th, but it was postponed. I believe it was 4 players and a coach got put into protocol. I hate to say it so, but we might be heading back that way, unfortunately.
Just when we thought we were out of the woods, right? We had that awful December, and then January rolls around. It's like, okay, we start feeling a little good about ourselves. We got the Olympics going on. I mean, it can't be that crazy if they have the Olympics and everything, right? Well, it turns out that no matter how much we might want to turn a blind eye to this, COVID's not going away anytime soon. Now, granted, this is just one game, and so far it looks like to be just one team really dealing with protocols. So nothing like December, but as I've learned with COVID, there's always a yet or a but attached to everything. So I don't want to make any kind of predictions on how well we're going to go in with the rest of February. I'm just going to say, you know what? This is just the first one in a long time, and hopefully we can get through it.
And I mean, this does come as Quebec starts to loosen a lot of their restrictions, especially with the vaccine passport and all these other things. But for Laval, it's like the same old song and dance. I mean, I would probably go out there and make the wild guess that they've had it worse than almost any other team in the AHL so far this year. Back in December and January, not only did their ECHL club have COVID, but so did their NHL club. So everybody who got called up had COVID. So, I mean, for Laval, it's like deja vu, obviously not to the same extent, but, they're used to the COVID by now, I guess.
Unfortunately. Well, hopefully it's kind of a one and done, but I guess time will tell. Well, speaking of time, it looks like Andrew Hammond's time in the American Hockey League might be done for a little bit. Andrew Hammond, who had a 6-2-3 record, .908 in the AHL, has now gone out of the Iowa Wild team and is now into the Montreal Canadiens squad after being traded for Brendan Baddock. 3 goals, 4 assists. What do you guys think of that trade?
I think there just wasn't a whole lot of room, as weird as it sounds, for the Hamburglar over there in Iowa. You have Zane McIntyre as your third option behind Hunter Jones and Derek Baribeau. With a vet like Hammond, I mean, yeah, maybe you want him around in case anything happens up top in Minnesota, but I mean, between Kakkonen and Talbot, I think they're pretty set there. So unfortunately, the Hamburglar was just kind of the odd man out in that situation. So, we hope for the best. Maybe he'll find some more of that magic, lead the charge to seeing Montreal get back into the playoff race or anything. Well, maybe not, but we can get some kind of excitement out of there, out of the Hamburglar still. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, this guy, he's a warrior. He hasn't stopped battling since day one, and we want to see what more he's got. So whether it's going to be in Montreal or in Laval, I think they're going to be a guy who's still, even after all he's accomplished, I feel like he's going to be out there to prove himself. So excited to see what happens in the next step here.
And I can't fathom how well of a trade this is for Montreal either, because they needed the goaltending. They have some American Hockey League goaltending already in the NHL, and Primo isn't ready for the NHL at this exact time, one of these days. But they needed someone who has some sort of NHL experience who could sit in the net for at least a couple of games. And I think when they got rid of Brendan Baddock, he's been struggling so far this season. Those 7 points are from 33 games this season. They weren't getting much of anything out of him in Laval. It's not going to do much for Laval anyways if he's taking up a roster spot. So, I mean, for the Montreal Canadiens, sure, they'll have to deal with them in a couple months, possibly, if Price comes back and if Allen comes back. But for now, it's not a bad trade.
Well, it looks like a new awarding of nickname is probably in order. Have we seen the last of the Hamburglar, and he's now the Habburglar? We'll see.
I fully endorse this, honestly. It works too well. It works too well.
It does. But anyway, it might be the last time we're talking about him on our podcast here for a bit, because it does look like, at least for the time being, he will be up with the Montreal Canadiens. And of course, their new interim head coach, Martin Saint-Louis. So we'll see how that rejuvenates that squad up there and if it impacts Laval at all. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next point. Speaking of interim head coaches, Colin is the new interim head coach of the Bakersfield Condors. Now, he was previously their assistant coach. And of course, this comes as a result of a lot of huge changes being made up at the top with the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, well, as everyone knows, Dave Tippett was the whole problem up there in Edmonton. It was just solely him. And now Jay Woodcroft, formerly Bakersfield's head coach, he's now up running the ship up there with, bit of a change in the talent level, when you go from Seth Griffith to Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But I'm sure, the years of head coaching experience in the system is just gonna roll through whatever talent that he's got up there. So big congratulations. And in case anyone wasn't sure, that was sarcasm. Dave Tippett is a great, fantastic head coach. Just didn't really, sometimes it doesn't work out. But Jay Woodcroft, absolutely congratulations to him. I mean, as far as I've been covering this league, Bakersfield has always been at the top, always been competing. So, can't give enough props to him. He's earned this, and I'd love to see him succeed there. It just feels like the NHL is just a little more exciting when, I don't know, Connor McDavid might be in a playoff spot. So hoping that Coach Jay can bring him up. And in terms of Bakersfield, I don't think they're going to be missing a step with all the accolades and all the talent they have in that squad. So let's see if Coach Chalk is up for the challenge and competing in that insane Pacific Division going on right there.
And the other side of it too, he's been the assistant coach since September 2021. It's been a question mark for me. How much experience does he have to be able to kind of lead the team to a top of a very tough division, right? It's so competitive. So you really have to be on your game. But I have full confidence he seems to be the right man for the job, at least for now, and for an interim time being, before they find someone else, or if they find someone else.
Well, kind of circling back to the COVID news here, we do have a little bit of good news for players traveling across the border. So on Tuesday afternoon, Canada has now dropped the required PCR test for Canadians, at least, traveling between the Canada and the U.S. That includes international borders. So who knows what kind of impacts that's truly going to have on the American Hockey League, but it's definitely worth noting, especially with all the travel that does happen in between and all the different divisions. So
I probably should have done my homework a little bit on this, and I don't know the AHL's testing requirements right off the top of my head, but I would think that this would kind of not show as much COVID. You would think, they're not being tested like regularly when they're crossing the borders. So this might have a big impact on teams as well. You may have some asymptomatic players who are able to play a little bit more now. And, you're not really held back by the border as much.
I was going to say someone should have probably gotten this note out to Laval a couple days sooner, but considering they were playing in Belleville, I'm guessing this wouldn't really have made a difference.
Probably not.
I tried.
You did. That's all the more we can ask for, right? Right. All right. Well, speaking of trying, some people tried last week and it got a little chaotic. And a few of those people, well, they ended up boofing, unfortunately. So we have to talk about it. It's all in good fun. And actually, we have to make up for some missed time. We really haven't been able to talk about the oofs for the last, 2-3 weeks. So we have 3 weeks worth of oofs. Well, they all happened within the last week, but we're going to go ahead and give you 3 oofs anyway. Might as well, right? So I'm going to go ahead and set the stage here, okay? So you are a team, okay? Your team puts 44 shots on net. Meanwhile, the team you faced, 24, okay? In the second and third period, you outscore that team 5-2. You think you're going to win that game, right, guys?
I mean, in most situations, but I feel like there's a very big but coming along here.
A huge one. Well, you don't win that game when the opposition outscores you 5-0 in the first period.
Oof.
And that was the story of the Cleveland Monsters in the Utica Comets back on the 11th, with the Monsters falling 7-5. Oof, was that a rough one to swallow for the Monsters? I'm not saying an oof necessarily because of the performance, because that was such a spirited comeback especially in the third. I thought they might have had it there because at one point it was 6-5, and then
it's such a deeper oof because scoring on Utica has just been so hard to come by all season long, and to score goals in bunches on Utica is even more rare. So when you do, you can't drop the ball like that. Now, granted, I mean, might have been a case of Utica kind of coasting in, like, oh, we're up 5-0. This is nothing. And Cleveland made a game out of it. They played with some pride going up against that number one team in the division there. But oof, yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to swallow.
And by the way, Cleveland did not have two of their top players that game in Brendan Gaunce and Trey Fix-Wolanski either, and they still managed to pull out that 7-5.
That's gutsy.
And it was Akira Schmid in net, 39 saves on 44 shots. To get that many goals against him, especially, I mean, we know how stingy Utica's been as a whole, but especially Akira. Wow. But yeah, Cole Fonstad and Justin Scott had themselves a game that night. So it's not truly like we're saying oof to you, Cleveland. It's just how many times can those stats go up and then you still end up falling? It's just, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's just oofs aren't, it's not necessarily going after one person or another. It's just sometimes a situation you got no other response but oof. And that's all you can give.
For Cleveland, wins have even become hard to come by, really, right? And when you come so close against a top team like Utica, my lord, you need everything. And yeah, no. All it takes is one period.
It did. It was a disastrous period for Cleveland and Jean-Francois Berube. But, I mean, it's not just wins have been hard to come by. Just goal scoring in general has been hard to come by for that squad. But to put it up in a nice little boat, they did end up defeating Utica the next night. So they redeemed themselves. It was nowhere near that high of a scoring fest. I think it was 2-1. But
they don't ask how, they ask how many.
Exactly. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the second oof. And Andrew, I'm going to kind of let you explain this one. I'll just show the clip and you can kind of walk us through this one here.
Oh, yeah. This one's in my running for oof of the year. And again, this is not calling anyone out. This is just, one of those plays where Kalen Addison's behind the net and, there's his own guy on then, Jonathan Berggren. I mean, left all alone, just kind of pots in the gift goal, and everyone on Iowa kind of standing around wondering what's going on. And we're again, this is a lighthearted segment. We're hoping that Kalen's okay, that he didn't take any serious damage from his teammate Marco Rossi there. But again, sometimes you don't have another reaction. Even me as a Griffins beat reporter just looked at them and just oof. I mean, the collision didn't have the desired results, obviously, and it just leads to a puck to forward coming into the zone right in front of your goalie. Berggren hits the post in the first shot, almost gets saved by the hockey gods, but the rebound comes right back up to him, and that's a tough way to lose a hockey game. That's
in overtime.
And I will use that as my case to continue to plead like 3-on-3 OT, just kind of like maybe I'll even give you 4-on-4. Iowa would have another guy out there, maybe he could clean that one up, but that was just That was a tough one. That's a tough one for the Wild.
Steve
I rag on him a
Smith.
lot, but I think this is just and you can just say oof. That's all you can do.
For sure. And then one more kind of visual one here. This is not necessarily hockey related, but it was shown during an intermission. And it was just something that kind of got us all laughing. I mean, we're not going to get into social talk here, but we all know about the great resignation that's going on and the hunt for workers. And I'm sorry, but this might not be the exact best way to publish your jobs here. So I'm sorry, but if you are saying that you have all these things, I don't think you want to put an X by them. And that's my copywriter and graphic designer and me saying, oof.
And they're red X's too. That's
They are.
That's
what a time to
big,
advertise.
very mega no. That's all the no.
So we don't have bonus programs. We don't have health insurance. There's no way you're going to advance here. So just oof, we're just, oops.
Are you in between getting a snack watching your American Hockey League favorites? Come get a job now. We don't have benefits. We don't have great wages.
But we have
delivered that makes me want to apply to whatever position you're offering. I don't even care about the benefits. Or lack
Come down to section 104 today and apply.
Oh my gosh, that was great. We need to hire Zach to do, next time we have a writer and photographer recruitment push, like we're just going to do Zach going, here's all the great things you can get here. Come down to @Field Pass Hockey on Twitter and apply today.
Health insurance sold separately.
Fan excitement guaranteed.
Go get that social engagement, guys. Let's go. We're going to move on to my personal favorite segment, Swipe Left or Swipe Right. So this is our hot takes of the week. Swipe right is good. Swipe left, not so good. And we've already all used our super swipe ups for the month, so I'm not even going to go over that because it doesn't apply. So, Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, if we want to get an oof of the week for next week, you can get it in my trying to pronounce this name. So the Chicago Wolves got a little bit of reinforcement in net this week with Carolina signing Pyotr Kochetkov, I believe it's pronounced, but I'm sure someone over in Moscow or Vladivostok right now is laughing at me in Russian. But this kid just got re-signed. He's the second-round pick from the Hurricanes a couple years ago, and that now gives Chicago the logjam in net of Alex Lyon, Eetu Makiniemi, Jack LaFontaine, and Kochetkov. And that's absurd to have 4 goalies of that caliber on a single AHL roster. But I think really, like, everyone knows how good the Wolves goalies have been this year. But I still think by the time the playoffs start, that Kochetkov will be one of the top 2 goalies in Chicago they're going to lean on come playoff time. I mean, this kid was slated to be the starter for the Russian junior team before, the IIHF decided to sabotage their own tournament. He has been over in the KHL the last couple of years, and he had a .926 save percentage in 24 games, I want to say it was, in what many people believe is the best hockey league outside of the NHL in the world. This kid's young, but he's just insanely talented, and I think if he gets a fair shot, he could end up pushing one of those 2 out of the running and kind of just not take over. I don't think at any point any one goalie is going to take over there for the Wolves, but I think Kochetkov is really going to put himself into consideration here. And so I like what I see from this kid. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people here in the Central.
This is always a classic debate.
It's
What
a
to
hot
do
one.
with the extra goaltenders. You make a very pleasing argument for me to come over. But and I mean, you would know best too, because they have some really good goaltending, is what kind of stumps me here on what to do.
Yeah, they got
Right?
some really good goalies. I mean, we know about Lyon. We know about Makiniemi. LaFontaine is a guy who kind of came in recently, but here's a guy who was named goaltender of the year in the NCAA last year. And if it wasn't for the Wolves situation in that last month, he probably wouldn't be here, but he is. And this kid's good. He saw a little bit of time in Carolina, and now he's here in Chicago. So it's kind of, again, like I said, it's absurd to have 4 goalies like this where you could reasonably start any of them and have a shot to beat even the best teams on any night.
I'll swipe left on the idea because I think that there will be a trade. They have to move somebody. Somebody has to give, because there's no way that all those goaltenders or some of those goaltenders can even look at the ECHL right now. I don't know what below looks like, but I do know what above and what ground floor looks like, and it's pretty good looking. So yeah, I'll give some love for that.
So Zach and I were kind of thinking along the same lines, but I went slightly different. If they're going to offer up an AHL goalie for a team that's looking for some more depth, wouldn't they want one of the goalies that's already proven in the league, as opposed to this slightly unknown asset? Yes, we know he's good in the K, but is he good on North American ice? So I was thinking, for similar reasons as Zach, that it would be a right swipe, because maybe they would go after a Makiniemi or one of the other goaltenders that has actually proven himself on North American ice. So I'm going to swipe right on this one.
All right. It's honestly one of my more wild takes of the year. I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen in that over the next week, let alone by the time the playoffs roll around. But, it's going to be a lot of fun. I honestly can't wait for it.
Exciting stuff. Okay, so I've been kind of thinking about it. And besides San Jose, because to be frank, they had an NHL second line winger playing on your team, and you still lost. But nonetheless, besides San Jose, I don't think that there's any team who is looking to be physically out of the playoffs. Yes, Cleveland has one of the worst records in the past 10 in the league right now. And yes, Texas is terrible sometimes, right? And yes, Grand Rapids is terrible right now. But I think that the playoff aspirations are there for every team besides San Jose.
That's an emphatic swipe right for me, because we've seen just how quickly a team can go downhill. Cleveland is the perfect example. They were still in the hunt. They were still good. Then December came around. They got absolutely bodied by COVID. And that just sent them on a complete tailspin. But we're seeing signs of that Cleveland team coming back. That 7-5 game, then going out and beating Utica. Could this be return of Cleveland of old? Quite possibly. So yes, it's an emphatic swipe right for me. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
And the way that I look at it, with the expanded playoff format, for example, in the Pacific, you got 7 teams that are going to end up making it. So, I mean, okay, we can probably call San Jose out, right? But San Diego is a playoff team right now, sitting at a .432 point percentage, with Tucson right behind them at .413. So both of those teams are realistically still in it. One of them is. And again, you get a team on a hot streak. How long ago were we declaring the Milwaukee Admirals dead in the water? Well, guess what? They're third in the division right now. They're one of the hottest teams in the league, if not the hottest team in the league. So there's way too much time left in the season, and there are way, like, with the expanded format, there's just too many variables, too many open spots. It's anyone's game at this point. Yeah, I'm definitely swiping right on it.
All right. And I actually have one for you guys this week since Jeremy and Michael are out. Wanted to get at least 3 hot takes in here, but this is one that just came to me, just kind of looking over the points leaders and the scoring races and things like that. And one name caught my eye. Matthias Michelli out of Tucson. Now, Tucson hasn't been having the best season. Their organization is in a state of disarray, may we say. But he still has 48 points on that team as a rookie. My hot take is that were he on a better team, he would be contending for the points lead by this point. Now, the points lead right now currently has 59, and this kid has 48 points on a Tucson Roadrunners team in the Pacific Division. 11 goals, 37 assists, good for 48 points in 38 games. So he's over a point per game player in Tucson. Get this kid on a better team.
I like where you're coming from. I like what I've seen from him. I'll just play devil's advocate and say, are we looking at a big fish in a small pond type deal where he might be the only option to look at on offense and he's just kind of carrying the team? I'm still going to swipe right on this because when I took a look at who he was working with and where the number 2 spot was, I was like, okay, well, maybe if he was around like the 35 range or something like that, I might say like, okay, maybe I think this is a little bit of him just being the best guy on a bad team. But when I saw him sitting at 48 points and that number 2 is down there at 29, I was like, okay, he might be able to benefit from a better line mate. So, or 2 or 4. So yes, I'll swipe right on this. Yes, sometimes you're the big fish in a small pond, but you still got to have the talent to sit there at 3rd in league scoring.
Yes.
Make a very compelling case. My thing is, the Pacific Division is a good division. Don't get me wrong, okay? But so is the North. The North is a great division. It's especially the beginning half of the season, the Atlantic's on a tear, right? And if your name starts with Milwaukee, Manitoba, or Chicago, you're loving life right now in the Central. So I'm kind of in the boat where, I don't think so. I really don't. And I think that he would be a little outshined by some of the other talent on some of these other teams. I mean, if he was on the Chicago of the Worlds, he'd have a tough time cracking that first spot. He'd be up there in that first line, but he has some good players. You look at Toronto the same way. Cleveland would really desperately need him, but that's a different story, right?
We said better teams. We said better teams.
Better teams. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I saw Deana locking in on that one. I had to get out of the way.
but you're constantly going Tucson hasn't really left their divisions all too much. They don't really know what life is like on the outside of the bubble. And so when you face off against San Diego and even Abbotsford, Bakersfield, San Jose, who are mediocre to bad, it's that's 3 or 4 teams there. That's half the division who's wouldn't really make it well in other divisions. So yeah, I'm going to swipe left, a roundabout way.
Hey, that's better than I was anticipating, considering I literally just came up with that about 30 seconds before I put it out there. So not bad for a quick profile. Got a 50%
Impromptu
strike
hot
rate.
take. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's a segment that, well, we're now going to move on to a segment that we haven't been able to talk about in a little bit. But boy, do some of these kids grow up so fast. Sometimes it takes them a while, but whenever the growth spurt happens, it happens. You heard a little bit about the reaction last week of one Trey Fix-Wolanski. I will spare you the dramatics and we'll just go into the facts. So within a week, what a whirlwind. He was on our podcast here at the Holy GrAHL, gets named to our fan-voted AHL All-Star team. And then he finally gets his first, and may I say, long-awaited call up to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Then in his first game against the Washington Capitals, he actually scored his first NHL goal against a name that we here in the AHL recognize well, Zack Power. And then in the very next game, he goes on to get an assist. Now, my beat bias is showing here, but I think that call-up of Trey Fix-Wolanski and, of course, his Monsters teammate Brendan Gaunce has completely invigorated that Blue Jacket squad. Meanwhile, oddly enough, the call-ups are also seeming to have new life, kind of just infusing new life into that struggling Monster squad. I mean, especially Tyler Angle and Carson Meyer. I mean, Carson Meyer even saw a one-game call-up. He didn't play because Patrick Laine was kind of questionable, but he ended up going in. But he still got to go along and be on that call-up. So, yeah, that was exciting. If you guys haven't seen the clip of one of the Columbus beat writers interviewing Trey Fix-Wolanski's dad in the stands, you need to go see it. I have retweeted it multiple times from different sources because he is the most Canadian stereotypical dad ever. He has a magnificent beard and he is just so proud of his son. And it was so funny. He said something like, "Oh, growing up, Trey had a poster of Alexander Ovechkin on his wall, and now my kid sniped against his team." And he was just so proud. It was wonderful. So yeah, it took him a while to grow up, but whenever he did it big time. He did it right.
Yep. Congrats to Trey. Again, it just goes to show, whoever decides to accept the invite to the pod, wonderful things happen for you in the weeks following. So, the invitation's always there for anyone who wants to join us. And if you need any other good signs or motivation, what more could you possibly want?
See our other examples of Andrew Podorowski and Jonathan Berggren. See what's happened with the Utica Comets all season long. Their play-by-play guy was on. So come on, organizations. We'll be happy to take your players, take your play-by-play guys. Just bring them on.
And didn't Hershey get good too after we had Corey on? Like they got increasingly better as well. I think about that, but it's a kind of amazing to see, as for anybody who follows hockey, when you start to see a player who's brings so much life into a locker room that's really much needed. Like Columbus kind of needed that kick in the pants, right? And they just needed someone to give them that kick in the pants. Like I think about the Canadians last year, they had Cole Caulfield come in, and we all know the story there. And it's the same kind of narrative that you're seeing in Columbus, is like the little train that could. And I don't know what he's saying in the locker room, if anything, could be all nerves, but to be able to have that drastic change, seemingly, like the Columbus team looks so much more relaxed and in a better formation and playing so much better now that they have a young star up there. Just goes to show, give them a chance.
And I think sometimes you see the response from the Monsters that, you might lose to your best players, but the other guys kind of start to pick up because now that's your opportunity to shine. And I think it kind of goes to show, and you see Utica come in and they put up those 5 goals against them. These are guys that kind of been, pushing, waiting for that opportunity. And I think in this league, as much as your teammates and your brothers with the guy next to you, sometimes you see them get called up and you kind of think like, oh, that should have been me. So you go out there and you got an extra step in your game and you really want to show that like the next time that call up is there, I want to be that guy, and I think we see a little bit of it with the Monsters. Hopefully that can translate with some wins. So enough ragging on Cleveland. I've done I'm tired of getting the death stare from Deana. I'll instead segue over to someone I've had a bit more of not so much a personal connection, but in covering the Wolves and their wonderful battles with Iowa, I got to watch Matt Boldy start first with last year, but then start this year off with Iowa. And really, he was just one of those kids that just wowed you with his talent from the moment that he took his first shift for the Wild to now he has been up with Minnesota for, I want to say, 13 games and already has his first career hat trick. Yes, it was against the Red Wings. Woo. And but still, to see this kid that I had seen make his professional debut, to growing through the Minnesota system, he was up for a couple games and he came back, and you're thinking, is he going to be here for a while to kind of round his game out? Well, I think we can put those rumors to bed. I don't think Matt Boldy is going to see an Iowa sweater ever again. And, congratulations to him. He's just taken the first couple steps in what I'm sure is going to be a wonderful NHL career for this kid. He grew up really fast.
Well, we're looking at a player that is over his entire time in the American Hockey League, he's over a point per game player. Last season, he played 14 games, had 18 points, mainly assists, I guess overwhelmingly assists, 6 to 12. And then this season in 10 games, he was exactly a point per game player, 10. A little bit more even, 4 goals, 6 assists, but you can definitely see where he has put in the work. Call up well deserved, and congratulations. First career hat trick. That's awesome. That's exciting.
We didn't even have to bring him on here for it. He did it all on his own.
Some people are just superior like that, I guess. All right. So we're going to go ahead and look at the scoring races here. Now, it has been a few weeks since we've checked in. So let's just go ahead and pull these numbers up and see if we have any changes here into the point getters. And nope. Andrew Podorowski and TJ Tynan are still solidly perched there on the top, but TJ has narrowed his deficit from 9 to 7. So he's basically keeping pace on Andrew Podorowski, kind of making a little bit of headway there. But I talked about him a little bit earlier on in the podcast, but man, has Matthias Michelli been on a heater, guys. Last time we looked at the points race, he wasn't even in the top 10. Now he's third. And he's a rookie. Only rookie in the top 10. But we are looking at Chicago still has 2 in the top 10 with Andrew Podorowski at 1, Stefan Nason at 4. You have
3 in the top 10.
I apologize. CJ Smith
sneaks in there, yeah.
Sneaks in there at number 7. You have TJ Tynan 2nd, Matthias Michelli 3rd. Of course, we talked about Stefan Nason, Seth Griffith out of Bakersfield. Martin Ferk is still in the conversation at that number 6 spot. CJ Smith. We have 2 Milwaukee Admirals players back-to-back with Rocco Grimaldi and Cole Schneider. And then rounding up the top 10 out of Springfield, Matthew Pekka.
And I think it goes to say something about Milwaukee, which we haven't really seen a whole lot of in the top 10, maybe creeping in that back half, but like to be able to have 2 players in there now, is, showing Chicago a little bit of heat there in the top 10. We can only have so many in the Central Division there, but I mean, that goes to show something about the gameplay that they've been playing and just kind of taking off those cement shoes and getting out of the basement, like showing like we can actually play hockey. Like we are not disformed. We are, we can actually play good. Great stuff.
Yeah, Rocco Grimaldi started the season out up in Nashville, and then I'm guessing once they kind of had a couple players inserted into the lineup, just wasn't a whole lot of room for him up there in the big club. So now he's been, just thriving here in Milwaukee. And I don't think it's any kind of coincidence that as soon as he showed up, they started turning that ship around. And, now that he's firmly entrenched in that lineup and you see him shooting up those standings, it really goes to show his importance to that team. I'm not saying that 3-letter acronym that goes normally with the guy who gets the most points, but if he keeps this pace up in Milwaukee, if they can overtake Manitoba, and I won't say anything about Chicago because they're so far ahead, but they give them a run for their money, you gotta bring them into that conversation. And this just continues for a guy who I've said from the very beginning is just too talented to keep in this league. And he's showing it right here, right now in front of our eyes. And if you don't believe me, just look at the tape. He had another goal and assist in today's school day game to knock off those leading Chicago Wolves. So huge win for Milwaukee there. They're on fire right now. And, we love to see it. Even me as a guy who reports on the other two central teams, we love to see it.
Well, you just have to wonder, is that line of Grimaldi, Cody Glass, and Cole Schneider, are they kind of carrying the entire team, or is this just an effect of one true top line and then everyone's kind of putting in a full team effort? I haven't been able to watch a lot of Milwaukee games, but it's just it's not lost on me that the two wingers on one line are both sitting there with 40 points.
It's certainly, the spoon that stirs the pot for that Milwaukee team, but they're also they're a good squad. I think they just couldn't really piece it together at the beginning. Yeah, not just missing Grimaldi, but Cody Glass really it took him a couple not more than a couple games to really kind of get the wheels turning on that one. Even now he's only sitting there with 8 goals. I know he's not primarily a goal scorer, but it took him a minute. And I know he'd been kind of bounced around from Vegas's system to now he's here in Milwaukee trying to figure his game out. And lately, he's been looking really, really good. So we'll see how well that can continue. But they have really good pieces. Tommy Novak is one of my favorite players on that team. Yes, probably because he was one of my favorite players on the Wolves last year, and now he's on the Admirals. But he's one of those guys that just makes plays every time he touches the puck. And you got a big guy in Mitch McLean who can produce, and he can step up and throw the gloves down if he needs to. You got Josh Healy in the back end, along with Freddie Allard and Jeremy Davies, guys with experience. You got a goaltending duo in Connor Ingram and Devin Cooley, who A or B, these guys can go out there and stop pucks with the best of them. They've seen contributions from both of their goaltenders to get them where they're at right now. It's just a team that took a minute, but they're rolling now, and they're dangerous. We saw it today. The Wolves started on the first period. They were up 2-0. Kind of seemed like it was another one of those Milwaukee games where they just kind of run away with it. And then the Admirals went and pulled out 4 goals in the second and won it by a final of 4-3. So it was just, they got skill, they got grit. They're dangerous. They really, I think, I don't want to say I called it a couple weeks ago, but I kind of called it a couple weeks ago.
Hey, if you called it, you called it. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the top goal scorers right now. We do actually have a new leader, but same team though. Andrew Podorowski falling to 4th place in the goal scoring race, but teammate Stefan Nason keeps that top spot in the collar, or he's not Colorado, he's Chicago. I don't know why I said Colorado. But Stefan Noesen takes that top spot, keeping it in the Chicago system. But guys, we have a lot of new names in this list since the last time we've looked at it. But we do have to temporarily say goodbye to Jack Quinn as the league has finally caught up to his hot start and are now eclipsing that 18-goal mark.
Can I just say that in that top 10 list, there's only one player outside of the Central and Pacific Division. One player, Michael Murch. That is amazing to kind of think about. Like, mind you, a lot of them are from Chicago, Milwaukee, and even Abbotsford is starting to get a couple players on there. But like, really, it really shows you how dominant the West is.
That's just what I'm saying. Like, a lot of how much fun those Abbotsford Canucks are. Having two players in Sheldon Dries and Sheldon Rempel in the top for goal scoring, and really a team that, you know, night in, night out is going to, you know, make it entertaining whether they win or lose. But, you know, you might not see them as much when they're sitting there in number 6 in the division, but it's a really good division right now. And there's your proof right there.
It really is. And just to give a quick rundown here, so just to kind of prove Zach's point, you know, you got Chicago at 1 and 4 again, like we talked about. Ontario's Martin Frk at 2, Abbotsford Sheldon Dries at 3, and then in 5th, Rocco Grimaldi out of Milwaukee. Then 6th is Michael Murch out of Rochester. Kiefer Sherwood, Colorado, Colt Schneider, Milwaukee, Sheldon Rampel, Abbotsford, and Matthew Phillips, Stockton, all out of that Western Conference. It's just mind-blowing. So we already talked about the overall points getters, but let's keep a special eye on our rookies. And remember how I said it was just going to be a temporary goodbye to Jack Quinn? Well, it really was just temporary because he is still 5th overall in rookie scoring. It's a fall from 1st, but honestly, the fact that he's inactive due to injury right now and is still 5th is, in my mind, pretty impressive. So, but it's been a couple weeks since we've looked at this. But again, Michelli with 15 points. I mean, come on, guys. That's mind-blowing. All of them, but one are assists too, just in case you were wondering.
Can we do a wellness check on Jeremy? Is he okay? We did bring up Jack Quinn. I don't. He was a little sour about the idea. You know, we just need a really quick wellness check.
I think he's probably going to be okay because, you know, JJ Peterka is still there at 2. Right behind Jack Quinn in the top 10 is another American, Brandon Bureau. I think Jeremy's going to be just fine.
He'll be fine.
He'll be just fine. They've got enough rookies that are just blowing the rest of the division out of the water in my mind. Mm-hmm. So, and then of course, rookie goals. Speaking of Jeremy, I really wish he was here because Jack Quinn is still top in goals scored for rookies. I mean, I can't wrap my mind around that one, but Scott Reedy is looking to be the heir apparent here. He is out of San Jose of all teams, but JJ Peterka sneaking into the top 10. So honestly, that tells me who's picking up Quinn's production and goals over in Rochester.
Talk about like carrying your team too for San Jose. Their last 10 going into Tuesday's recording is 1-9-0, which is outstanding to kind of think about. And that's the worst in the league right now. They have like a .35 winning percentage. So they win like 3 out of every 10 games. I mean, like we talked a little bit about players kind of giving a kick in the pants. And sure, Reedy can only do so much, but like it's time that some of the players on the Barracuda kind of take that kick in the pants from Reedy and say, hey, this guy is fresh into the league. And he's already doing better, astronomically better than anybody else. Keep going, man. Keep doing it. Keep fighting the good fight behind you.
Yeah, it's kind of a really rough stat line for him. I mean, the 18 goals is really nice, and you see the 9 assists that comes with it. That's just give me a sign that maybe his teammates aren't doing quite as good of a job as putting the biscuit in the basket. And then I know this is kind of an outdated stat with all the advanced metrics and everything, but minus 21. That just hurts for someone who's putting the puck in that and seeing such a disparity, even strength. My heart goes out to Scott and the other players of San Jose who apparently we've already kind of eliminated from the playoff race, which only means that they're about to go on a run and grab one of those playoff spots. But yeah, that's tough.
When you talk about that minus 21 stat, even when he had 14 goals, he's still 18. Sorry, it's this really tiny font. Even when he had 18 goals, he's still a minus 21. That's scary to think about. Just a wee bit scary. I don't know if it's outdated, yes, but like, yeah. Oh. Ooh. I got chills. Like, I actually have chills. Ooh. 18 goals minus 20.
Wow. I'm trying to wrap my head around that now too.
It's a tough stat. It's a tough stat to swallow. And we apologize to all the Barracuda fans out there.
I would love to know how many goals he's actually been on the ice for. Is it only 18? It has to be only 18. There's no way that any of his line mates have ever scored in their life. What?
Okay, so
is he on every penalty kill ever?
As I look, 10 of his 18 goals have come on the power play. So you're looking at what? Okay, and 1 shorthanded goal. So 7 even strength goals. That kind of takes the burn away a little bit, knowing that so many are on the power play. So it's not really factored into that.
No, it doesn't. He's already a level 3 burn victim here. He's worse than my thumb. Oh my God, no. No. This is bad. This is bad, friends. This is bad.
Welcome to the San Jose Barracuda in 2022.
Oh, my head.
It sounds like we need a moment of zen here. Breathe, Zach. Breathe. It's gonna be okay. You cover the Marlies, not the Barracuda. Brought to you by the people that do offer good job benefits and not promote everything they don't offer. So let's talk about things that are good, okay? Let's bring it back to things that are
more
good.
More good vibes.
More good vibes. And that will be good goalies. So Akira Schmid out of Utica is back on top of the goals against race. Yes, we talked about that disastrous outing, I guess, that still ended up being a win for him against Cleveland, but he's still in the league with a 1.98 goals against average. 1.88. My graphic was a little small. I blew it up, and you are welcome, Utica fans. So rounding up, but first, let's just talk about the fact that the top 3 goalies in the league right now are all rookies. Number 2 is Eetu Makiniemi out of Chicago. Number 3, Dustin Wolf out of Stockton.
Yeah, unfortunately, Makiniemi hasn't played in a couple of weeks. He's still been sitting on the shelf with that injury ever since the stoppages around December. And hopefully, they said around this time he'd be getting reevaluated, and there hasn't really been a public timetable for his return because, there's anything about AHL coaches that they love to not talk about. It's injuries. So whenever Maki decides to come back, not decides, but whenever the doctors clear him to come back, that's better, he, we hope that he stays up at the top of that leaderboard, because it's always fun to get a little bit of practice and saying that name really fast. And he's, just been having an incredible season. And I really hope that bringing in someone like Kochetkov or LaFontaine doesn't end up being like, well, you were on the shelf for a bit. These kids kind of came up and there's not enough room left. So, that's what I don't want to hear is something like that happening in his case. But if that happens, whoever he's going to be going to will be getting an extremely good young goaltender. So we'll have to wait and see.
said good vibes. We're not putting trade vibes out into the universe just yet. We're not quite to that trade deadline.
I'm not putting them vibes up there. I'm trying to forecast.
I love this list for so many reasons, okay? Because we talk so much about Utica and their goaltending is mwah, mwah, right? And then we talk about Chicago. They have a masterful array of goaltending, which is why I struggle so hard to kind of pinpoint who will be in that crease. You can only start one at a time. And then there's Dustin Wolf. Oh, bless. He's been playing great. It's fantastic. I've seen him in the CHL rather. And then he's great. And then Burden, who's backstopped Manitoba, does so many beautiful things. So many. And I think he would have been a World Junior. Don't quote me on this. So, boy, mwah, mwah, beautiful. Masterful top five.
What I look now, we normally only talk about the top 10, the top 5 when it comes to goaltending, but top 10 when it comes to the point, basically all of the skater races. But where we talked about, okay, the top 10 of the scoring races are normally all out of the Western Conference. It's kind of flipped when you look at the goaltenders. So I have, in terms of at least the goals against average, whenever I look at the top 10 of goalies, we're getting a lot more Eastern Conference players on here. So just running down: Utica, Chicago, Stockton, Chicago, Manitoba, Iowa. Okay, here's we get into the East now: Springfield, Hartford, Hershey, and then Utica again. You keep going down. It's mainly Eastern Conference.
But I say that because bad vibes are coming. Because the Western Conference has just been lighting it up. Like, how can you ever be a goaltender in San Jose when you have to go against Stockton and Ontario on a regular basis, right? Like,
you could have just stopped that. How could you ever just be a goaltender in San Jose? And then just
we'll stop right there.
And scene.
I now have no more San Jose fans left. All that niceness I talked about Reedy. But it's when we look at the top 10, like, there's no surprise when we talked so much West and Central is in the top 10 of the league in goal scoring and points. The back end is going to be goaltending, right? And, mind you, there's some really hot goaltenders in the West in the top 5. Boy.
Yeah, I think that makes what Dustin Wolf is accomplishing over there in Stockton, like, even that much more impressive to see, like, okay, you got all these goal scorers in Abbotsford. You got that monster of a machine in Ontario. You got some sneaky teams like Bakersfield and Colorado coming in to try and upset you. And even, Tucson, you got to worry about Michelli. And then, you get a breather every now and then when San Jose comes in, but that's it. That's
breather. You got Reedy there.
You do got Reedy, but as long as he's not on the power play, I think they'll be all right there. But okay, sorry, no more bad vibes. So I think that just makes what Wolf is accomplishing in Stockton just that much more impressive. Just considering, I think he's kind of going up against just a little bit more just wild sense of competition there.
Well, I do need to give a special shout out to Milwaukee Admirals goaltender Connor Ingram, who is the first goaltender to face over 1,000 shots against. He has faced 1,020 shots in 1,912 minutes and 38 seconds worth of game played. He has 80 goals against.
Cool.
So I thought that was an interesting stat. The next closest is Calvin Pickard out of Grand Rapids with 959. Let's go ahead and move on to the reason why all these players are here and facing 1,000 plus, shots. The quest for the Holy GrAHL. Enter heavenly music here. So we're going to start, as always, in the Atlantic Division. So Springfield Thunderbirds have taken back the Atlantic, but Hartford is lurking, not exactly in the shadows. They're a little bit closer than that. And of course, we can't count out those Hershey Bears, but otherwise it's the same order as last week. So Springfield, Hartford, Hershey, Providence, Charlotte, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Lehigh Valley, and rounding out the Atlantic are the Bridgeport Islanders. And then in the north, Rochester and Laval keep tripping over each other, but the same can be said for Syracuse and Belleville. So it's Utica, Toronto, Laval, Rochester, Belleville, Syracuse, and then my Cleveland Monsters down at the very bottom. In the Central, you guys may remember I asked last week if Iowa was good. Well, don't let that fall from third to fifth place fool you. Milwaukee is, and I mean, it's so close there in that middle part of the Central. And Milwaukee is continuing to make their way up the rankings. So Chicago, of course, solidly in that first place spot. Manitoba, Milwaukee, Rockford, Iowa, Grand Rapids, and the Texas Stars. And then in the Pacific, we've spent a lot of time talking about them, but the Gulls and the Roadrunners swap spots. Otherwise, it's status quo. So you got Stockton on top, Ontario, Bakersfield, Henderson, Chicago, or Henderson, Colorado, Abbotsford, San Diego, Tucson, and the San Jose Barracuda. So now that you know who's where, who's hot, who's not, let's go ahead and listen to Zach's and Andrew's picks of the week.
Yeah, as we start off in the Atlantic, my game of the week, I got Friday going with Hershey at Providence, take on the Bruins. And Providence can't really afford to fall too far behind in this ultra-competitive Atlantic Division. Charlotte's right on their heels, and they got a few softballs in their schedule coming up. So Bruins got to make a statement here.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with Cleveland and Charlotte. And Charlotte's going to want this for a couple of reasons. In the back half of the season, this is where the money really counts a lot more. And I mean, when we talk about Providence, they've kind of been slipping a little bit. So you can't really make any mistakes in this Atlantic Division because you really need those points. And Cleveland's a good chance.
Yeah, moving into the North, I'm going with Sunday's game. We got Laval going into Rochester. These are two teams right next to each other and heading in opposite directions in the standings. I mean, we've been talking about the Americans for all season, and now here they are sitting at fourth. And, the Rocket can really use this opportunity to put some distance and, rocket up the standings of the North. I'm not really proud of that pun. I'm not going to lie.
And so I'm really going to kind of double dip on this because I would have looked, when we talk about Cleveland and Charlotte, there's a lot on the line here for Cleveland as well. And, so often I preach about getting points from outside of the division. And, we kind of alluded that there's no real team outside of the playoff race. And Cleveland could be one of them who's not outside. I say that.
So, and I do have to jump in here and make a quick point. So this is actually going to be the first time that former Monsters captain Zach Dalby is going to be playing his former Cleveland squad. So that gives a little extra motivation for Charlotte. But of course, Cleveland will have that motivation too, to not let him enjoy that return a little bit too much.
Gotta love it. And then as we go into the Central, I can't pick one. I got to go with the Saturday and Sunday. It's a favorite of mine, Iowa Wild going in the All-State to take on the Chicago Wolves. I mean, I've picked this matchup several times this season, and I'll do it again. There's fireworks every time these two teams meet, and this weekend should be no different.
Watching the highlights of any time they play is awesome. I live for that. And we talk about Sunday, Milwaukee and Manitoba. Milwaukee has untied the cement shoes, as we say, and they kind of have this 9-1-0 record in their past 10 as of Tuesday. And they've really been trucking really great into the season. And when we go against Manitoba, they've been so good as well. So to be able to see that, these two teams clash, it's, it really is some of the best in the Central besides Chicago.
And as we move on to the Pacific, again, I got a Saturday, Sunday here. Abbotsford going into the Rocky Mountain State, taking on the Eagles. And they're coming off a doubleheader against Henderson in a division race where, just every point matters. Abbotsford's got some surprises up their sleeves. I want to see if they can give the Eagles a couple more.
Yeah, and I'll take Tucson and the Henderson Silver Knights because it's always good to see an Arizona-based team play with more than 5,000 fans in the seats.
Oof.
You work that in so flawlessly. I saw a stat earlier. I wish I would have kept that about there's only like 4 or 5 other professional hockey teams in North America that have arenas smaller than what the Arizona Coyotes will be playing in front of. I don't remember where I saw that.
Belleville is one of them, and I think there's 2 in the AHL, 1 in the ECHL, and there's 1 like below that, I think in the SPHL or something, if my memory serves me right.
I saw something, I think it was like Laval.
No, not Laval.
Not Laval. Okay, it might have been the their ECHL club.
I don't think the Leons, but something to certainly Google.
I know. I wish I could go back and find it. I will be doing that while Andrew announces his bonus round.
All right, so we're going with a Star Wars themed bonus round here, and we're dialing the clock back all the way to when I want to say episode 1, but I guess technically it was episode 4 was released, which was 1977, where Mark Hamill was all boyish and everything seemed all very, very pure in the world. And sure, things have changed with the internet and all that, but I kind of want to see. I was really interested in the state of just. I couldn't believe it was 45 years ago since that movie came out. So I wanted to see the state of the AHL 45 years ago. And to my surprise, there is only 7 teams in the league. And those teams are as follows. The Rhode Island Reds, the Springfield Indians, a couple names that we're familiar with, Hershey Bears, Rochester Americans, the New Haven Nighthawks, and the Nova Scotia Voyageurs. I think that's a French kind of pronunciation there, but I'm not going with that. I'm calling them the Voyageurs. And I'm going to ask you guys, who was the team that fired their proton torpedo into the exhaust port of the 1977 AHL season?
I'm sorry. That segue was beautiful. I just have to say. So, okay. So are you asking who won?
Who was the winner? Yep. And if you need me to run down the teams again, I can.
One more time.
Please?
Yep. That would be Nova Scotia, the Voyageurs, the New Haven Nighthawks, the Rochester Americans, the Hershey Bears, the Springfield Indians, or the Rhode Island Reds.
Just because they have an amazing name, and I truly have no idea otherwise, I love the Nighthawks. That'll be my pick.
Wait a minute. Oh, yeah, you gave it away in the beginning. It's the Voyageurs.
It was the Voyagers.
Oh!
Wait, he gave it away. Wait. Rewind. Rewind.
What do you mean I gave it away?
Because the Star Wars, you were talking about Star Wars. They traveled on the Voyager.
That's Star Trek.
Oh.
I mean, technically, right? But I almost kind of want to give it to Dina for the wrong reference. But you did get the team right, so.
Right church, wrong pew?
I actually had like a round 2 plan in case none of you got it, in which we went to 1980, and it was when The Empire Strikes Back came out, and it would have been a lot more poetic because Hershey won that year, and it was like already their 6th or 7th championship. So I was like, the answer is in the title, just I guess Hershey's just the evil empire of the AHL. Sorry to all Hershey fans out there, but Matt Molson, spoiler alert, is Darth Vader. But yeah, even despite your the misfire on the reference, Zach, the force is strong with you, and you won.
A little bit. So I found out a couple of teams that are playing with the 2 teams in the AHL who have a smaller rink for sure are the Belleville Senators and the Utica Comets. And there's also a huge list of CHL teams that have smaller rinks, including Moose Jaw, Prince Albert, Swift Current, and possibly Winnipeg. But I thought they played in the Canada Life Center, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, I was frantically trying to Google while still paying attention to what Andrew was saying, and I couldn't find the tweet. The reason why I said Laval was because I believe I was searching Laval on Google earlier on to fact check something, and that's when I found that tweet. So it must have been somebody talking about Laval being bigger, I guess. So as opposed to them being smaller. So I apologize for that little bit of miscommunication. Still wish I could have gotten that full list, but oh well, that's okay. But congratulations, Zach. You have gone where none of us have gone before. I need
went
to
on
get
a
the start
voyage to the win.
on the Voyager.
The Voyager, I guess.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for the Holy Grail this week. If you like us, please subscribe, like, share, rate us 5 stars, please. Just tell all of your friends. It's a good time. But if you really like us and want to talk to us a little bit more, be sure to give us all a follow on Twitter. You can find me over at FPH Monsters.
You can find me at either FPH Wolves or FPH Griffins.
And I'm at FPH Marlies.
And also be sure to check out all of our written work at fieldpasshockey.com, and be sure to give a listen to all of the other podcasts on the Field Pass Hockey Network. We have Inside the SPHL with James Hayes, the 3 Periods podcast with Matthew Harding and Matthew Will, who will get you up to date on all the big topics for the ECHL. And we have 2 other AHL podcasts. Syracuse Speaks with Alexander Ackerman, which is a Syracuse Crunch-centric podcast that focuses on maintaining a balanced perspective in the ever-shifting world of minor league hockey. And then, of course, you have Monsters Musings with Jacob Forster and myself. At Monsters Musings, we discuss all of the storylines, good and bad, around the Cleveland Monsters. So on behalf of my co-hosts here at the Holy Grail, we hope you have an amazing week, and we will catch you next Thursday. Bye.
This has been the Holy Grail Podcast. Have a question or a topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.